Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're located. Thanks for joining us on our webinar Wednesday. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Stephen Phelps, and I am the marketing manager here at Acumen, and today we'll be giving you an introduction to the cloud. These past few months, you may have been receiving a lot of emails from Sage and others about this cloud transition that is happening within our industry. That's why today we brought in our very own Nick Nabozny to give you some information on what is the cloud and is the cloud right for my business. Please note that this webinar will be in listen-only mode and should run for about an hour long. If you have any questions, then please type them into the chat option and we will answer them near the end of the presentation. With that said, I will go ahead and pass it on to Nick.
Thanks very much, Stephen. Can you hear me okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, beautiful. So as Stephen mentioned, as the way things have gone in the world with COVID and certainly everyone working remotely, now more than ever may be the right time to consider a possible move to the cloud. And we've been hearing about this for years. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about what that is and what it could do, what are the benefits for your company. And then also some, quick tour of Sage Intacct, which is the cloud product. So let's go ahead and get started. Our agenda today is to really firstly define the cloud. As I said, we want to dig into it a little bit because we've talked to a lot of clients and there's a lot of misconceptions about what it actually is. What does it mean? Where is it going to be? Where's my data? We'll talk about benefits of the cloud. Why would we even consider making a switch or making a move? Talk about the different types of clouds. There's public, private, and hybrid. And I'm not talking about stratocumulus or anything in earth science. I didn't do very well at that. So we're going to stick to computer clouds today. We're going to compare Sage 300 versus Sage Intacct. A lot of you, I see the attendees, we know that you're running Sage 300 and perfectly happy with Sage 300, and that's great. We could potentially take your Sage 300 system and move it into the cloud. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to take a quick look at Sage Intacct, which is Sage's completely cloud product. So first, let's spend some time, as I said, learning a bit about what the cloud actually means. This is a cloud, but it is not the cloud. And it is certainly not this. And believe it or not, we've had some conversations where there was some ambiguity or unsure, about whether or not where the data goes. Is it up there? Why is it called the cloud? What does that actually mean? So, definitely not this, definitely nothing to do with the sky, definitely nothing to do with actual clouds. And so really the way I like to think about it is pretty simple. It's just someone else's computer, but let's dig a little bit deeper and better understand the different types of cloud options and why it's called the cloud and what some of the benefits are that moving to a cloud solution would offer your business. So here's a good diagram of an actual kind of cloud system. And during the 1960s, the initial concepts of time sharing became popularized for remote job entry. I'm kidding. I'm not going to go that deep into the cloud. I'd probably bore myself to sleep in the middle of the webinar. So the cloud really refers to, as I said, someone else's computer or servers or computers that are accessed over the internet, right? So if we connect to these servers, they're going to have software on them. They're going to have potentially databases on them that are running up there, and we're able to access them via the internet. They're typically servers that are located in data centers. They could be quite literally anywhere in the world. And by using what we say cloud computing or the power of the internet, users, companies, you don't have to manage these physical servers yourself anymore. You can run these applications on these machines that are up in the cloud. So the cloud will enable users to access the same files and applications from almost any device. And because the computing and the storage takes place on the servers in a data center instead of locally down on the user's device. This is why a user can log into, say, their Instagram account or a Facebook account on a new phone after the old phone was broken or dropped in the lake, and they can still find all of your information in the same place. All your photos, all your text, your videos, your conversation history, it's all still there because it's not stored locally on that device. And it works exactly the same way with cloud accounting providers like Sage Intacct. So why is it actually called the cloud? I was wondering that myself. So it started off really as a kind of a slang term in the IT industry. When kind of back in the day when people were asked to draw a diagram of how your computer is going to connect to these other computers somewhere else in the world, uh, and basically therefore drawing the internet, they kind of started drawing this cloud image and kind of drawing a wire up to that cloud. And that's how the term the cloud came to be. And it was really just kind of adopted to really mean kind of the power of the internet and connectivity to servers elsewhere. So that's where it really came from. And that's what it is. And again, to come back to my kind of definition, I really like to think of it as just someone else's computer. I'm potentially paying for 100% of the time of use on that computer. I might be paying for just a little bit of time on that computer. And we're going to get into some of those benefits and how you could benefit and use the cloud in just a few minutes. So now that we have a better idea of what the cloud is, let's take a look at some of the advantages and even a few potential disadvantages of embracing a cloud solution. So the advantages, I would say, are easy implementation, right? So cloud hosting allows a business to retain the same applications and business processes without having to deal with back end technicalities. So I don't have to have the machine in my office. I don't have to have backup devices. I don't have to have redundant internet. I don't have to have redundant power sources, a closet with air conditioning, all those types of things that have to go into maintaining and protecting a server. So readily manageable by the internet, a cloud infrastructure can be accessed by enterprises easily and quickly. So that's a big one. Next, I would say is accessibility. Access to your data anywhere and anytime. An internet cloud infrastructure maximizes enterprise productivity and efficiency by ensuring your application is always accessible. This allows for easy collaboration and sharing among users in multiple locations. So no, especially in today's times, right, where we're all working from home potentially, or some in the office, some out of the office, needed to quickly kind of move away from the office because of COVID. Who's got the checks? Who can connect in and sign? Who's got access? How do I get to my Sage system? So the cloud really takes away all of that worry and provides this, unlimited accessibility anywhere, anytime. Next is another big one where there's no special hardware required. I can connect to the cloud with my laptop. I can connect to the cloud with my iPhone if I wanted to. I don't have to have anything, some hugely powerful machine to do all the kind of computing and all the power of it, because that's all done up in the cloud on the powerful servers that I'm taking advantage of. And then since everything's going to be hosted in the cloud, a physical storage center is no longer needed either. Um, and then next is cost per head. So overhead technology costs are kept at a minimum with cloud hosting, enabling businesses to use extra time and resources for improving company infrastructure. So kind of bringing down the cost per head of getting people connected to, say, an accounting system like we're going to talk about today. Flexibility is another one, and that can be flexibility for growth, as I put here. It can be flexibility for change in direction because of, again, COVID and just needing to reinvent yourself, or reinvent the workplace or what it looks like or how people connect. So it's easily scalable. So that's why I was focused on growth here. You can add and subtract resources typically with a phone call, sometimes even just a click of a button if you have access to, say, the portal or the configuration utility. And then as companies grow, your system can grow with it quickly, easily, and pretty inexpensively. And then lastly is efficient recovery. Cloud computing delivers faster and more accurate retrievals of applications, of data. So really providing you with less downtime. And then, if there is any problems or any issues, it's really the most efficient recovery plan. We've worked with a lot of clients over the years that, think they're doing really good backups on their Sage system. And, oftentimes you don't know that the backup doesn't work until you actually need to restore it. So a lot of times we'll tell clients to test these backups, work with their IT guys to make sure that it is actually usable if and when you ever need it. Hopefully you don't, but better to know that you have a good, reliable backup if you ever need it. The cloud does the same thing, but you're not pulling tapes out, taking one home on a rotation and kind of worrying about all of that. That all happens, again, up in those cloud servers. Okay. Now, I promised to talk about a few potential disadvantages. you know, you're not necessarily 100% in control anymore of the environment when you move to the cloud. So if you move kind of your software, your services, your databases over to the cloud, you're effectively handing over data and information. For companies that have an in-house IT staff, a lot of times they may not be able to kind of handle any issues on their own. They may be working in conjunction with whoever the cloud provider is and their particular IT team. So sometimes, and we'll get into this when we talk about types of clouds, but you may also not necessarily get all the features that are offered by a cloud. Not all services are the same. Some cloud providers tend to offer limited versions, and you have to pay extra to turn things on and enable kind of the most popular features only. So you may not be able to customize things, but it's a pretty good trade-off in my opinion, because because of the ease of implementation, the accessibility, the cost, quite frankly, that's all brought down because I don't have to manage these. I don't have to, I give up a little bit of control, but I don't need IT guys to necessarily manage it internally. So I think it's a pretty good trade-off for the benefits that the cloud offers. So now, how do we pick the right type of cloud, right? So there are three actually, public, private, or hybrid. And we're going to talk about all three of these options and what they mean. I'll kind of relate them back to our Sage systems because that's what we've been working with and that's what we help clients with on a daily basis. So a public cloud is the most common type of cloud computing kind of environment. The cloud resources, again, servers, storage, databases, those pieces are owned and operated by a third-party cloud service provider and delivered over the internet. So let's take a public cloud, for example, and say, okay, all the hardware, the software, and any infrastructure they're all managed by that cloud provider. So they're responsible for the security, and they take it very seriously. So, we always say there's generally a lot more people taking care of security at Microsoft over the Azure platform than there probably are in many of our customers' IT environments, possibly even all of them combined, right? Security is incredibly important to them, especially when they're providing this type of service. So Microsoft Azure is an example, as I said, of a public cloud. Amazon Web Services is an example of a public cloud. So in a public cloud, you often share the same hardware. the same storage, same network devices with other organizations, or what we call a cloud tenant. You may have heard the term multi-tenant, right? And you access the services, you manage your account using your web browser, so everything over the internet. And public clouds are frequently used to provide things like web-based email, online office applications, storage, so like a Dropbox, Microsoft 365 for email, for office, and also testing and development environments. And now with Sage Intacct, we're starting to move accounting systems and add them to that list. So some of the advantages of a public cloud, again, are probably the lowest cost, right? So you don't have to purchase hardware. You don't have to necessarily purchase software. A lot of times you're just renting these, right? So no huge outlays of capital up front. And you really only pay for the service that you use. So if I'm only taking, these modules, or I'm only taking this much of space on the storage server, I pay for what I use. There's little to no maintenance involved because that is all part of what you pay for. And the service provider is maintaining all of the systems, all of the software, all of the updates, all of the antivirus, everything that kind of goes around that to make it a safe computing environment. There's virtually near unlimited scalability. On-demand resources are pretty quick to turn on to meet your business needs, whether you're changing, adding users, growing, whatever that happens to be. The ability to make a change in the public cloud is quite usually pretty easy to do and pretty fast. And then high reliability would be the last one. It's a vast network of servers, and it really ensures against failure. The uptime, on a private cloud is often, they call it 5 nines, right? It's up 99.99999% of the time. It's very, very, very high reliability on a public cloud. So next is a private cloud. And similar, but this consists of cloud computing resources used exclusively by one business or organization. A private cloud can be physically located at your organization's on-site data center. So if you have a data center, that's next to your building, part of your building, kind of a bunker type room, it could be there. It could actually be hosted by a third-party service provider, which also may offer public clouds, right? In a private cloud, the services and infrastructure are always maintained on a private network, and the hardware and software are dedicated solely to your organization. So to kind of put that into our perspective and relate that to Sage, in a Sage 300 world, a lot of you I see on the call here are familiar with Acumen providing hosting options with the likes of Swissnet and Cloud at Work. Those are all private clouds where it is all software and hardware machines, computer time, server time for your organization only. Okay? So a private cloud can make it easier for an organization to customize its resources. So if you particularly needed 5 servers because of your user count, and this other company only needed 1 server because they're much lower in user count, or they don't process quite nearly as many transactions, that's a lot easier to do in a private cloud because you can turn on and off what you'd like, and it is solely used for you. We do see a lot of private clouds in use for government agencies, financial institutions, other mid to large size organizations with kind of business critical operations seeking, enhanced or greater level of control over your environment. The advantages of a private cloud are more flexibility. I'd say you can pick and choose what you want in your cloud. I can load up extra software that may not be related to the accounting system because it is actually your cloud, your computing environment. You have more control. The resources aren't shared with anyone. So, at 5 p.m. on a Friday, that might be your biggest time. And if someone else across the globe is actually, banging away on that server, you may, not necessarily have the same level of resources that you enjoy at other times of the day or other periods in the month. more scalability in a private cloud. It offers more scalability compared to on-premise infrastructure. So, it's not as easy to just go down the street, buy a server, connect a couple of wires and turn it on in your office, right? And make sure it all talks nicely to each other. Well, in a private cloud, you can call up, and again, perhaps even configure it on the web page and turn on more power, add more memory, more computing power, add more disk space or storage space in a private cloud environment. And then lastly, a hybrid cloud, which is a type of cloud computing that combines your on-premise hardware, your on-premise infrastructure, with a public cloud. So it's kind of a private cloud connected to a public cloud. Um, Hybrid clouds allow data and applications to move between the two environments. So we see these used in some cases where you need kind of necessarily, you don't have a lot of server power required at certain times of the year or certain times of the month, and then maybe at year end or month end you need to kick that way up because everyone's in closing the books, or everyone's in doing billing, or whatever the case might be. Everyone's in running job reports to close things out. So we see a hybrid cloud in situations where um, you know, you could say, okay, I need to push this processing up to the cloud where there's more resources, more availability, and take advantage of that. And again, kind of paying for what you use. So it kind of allows you to scale computing resources, and it eliminates the need to make massive capital expenditures to handle kind of short-term spikes in demand. It also frees up local resources for more sensitive data or applications. So, and you really only pay for the resources that you're using temporarily, instead of having to purchase extra hardware and programs and software to maintain that, short-term use. Now, advantage of a hybrid cloud are, again, control. And I know we said that in a private cloud, so it is similar because it's part private, right? You can maintain a private infrastructure for any super sensitive assets or workloads that require low latency. It gives you flexibility as well. I wouldn't say as much as a private cloud, but you can take advantage of the additional resources in the public cloud if and when you need them. It's cost effective with the ability to scale to the public cloud. You're going to only pay for that extra computing power when you need it. You don't have to buy massive servers just in case you need it, or pay it for the times where you're not taking advantage of it. And then ease, again, transitioning to the cloud doesn't have to be overwhelming because you can migrate gradually. You can start to push certain things up. You can, I'm going to start with email and get that off of my server. And then I'm going to move to maybe Office, Word, Excel type software, and then perhaps my accounting software, and move, slowly or gradually when you're ready over to a public cloud, kind of phasing in workloads over time. So next, we're going to kind of compare Sage 300 to Intacct. So Sage 300, it looks like everyone on that I can see in the attendees list is probably familiar with Sage 300, but just in case there's a few out there, Sage 300 is an on-premise application, right? It's been around for nearly 40 years. It is typically something you would install on a server at your office, so on-premise hardware. But we're going to talk about how we could move that into a private cloud, and we've worked with a few of the clients on the call today, a few of the attendees, to be able to do that. And then Sage Intacct is 100% cloud-based. Sage acquired the application to be able to offer a cloud option to all of their clients. Okay. This is a public cloud accounting system. It is up there on server environments that are shared, and there's pros and cons to that. But this list also, I spent 20 years consulting on Sage 300, so it's very near and dear to my heart. but I'm now the Intacct practice director here at Acumen. And I have to admit, this list came from Intacct. So we're going to talk about some pros and cons, some shortcomings of Sage 300, and then also kind of flip the script and talk about where Sage 300 might, kind of do better than Sage Intacct in certain cases. So starting on the Sage 300 on the left-hand side here, as I said, it's an on-premise solution, and it requires a tool or a software like Remote Desktop or Citrix to be able to provide off-site access capabilities. And that's something that Acumen helps our clients do with a private cloud. In Sage 300, reporting is pretty labor intensive. It's all Excel-based reporting tools. It's all batch driven, and that oftentimes creates a lag between transaction entry and reporting. On the Intacct side, all reporting is in real time. It delivers instant visibility, eliminates the batches in the system, and kind of eliminates really the need for Excel-based reports. Now, they say, Intacct says Sage 300 has a bit of a limited vertical focus. We at Acumen have spent many years helping all kinds of different clients in many different industries use Sage 300 quite successfully. So I'm not sure I buy that completely, but one thing I will say is on the Intacct side, there are specific kind of configurations for certain verticals. We do hospitality very often, being here based in Central Florida, surrounded by hotels, right? We have certain dashboards that are for that industry. There are certain configurations we can turn on for not-for-profits, for service industries, for distributors. So they do offer on the Intacct side some configurations to speed up the process. Sage 300 uses a segmented general ledger account, meaning you might have the account dash department or division dash region dash person employee. So it often leads to a very large chart of accounts because you have to predefine every option if you would like to be able to report on it down the road. Sage Intacct comes at it a different way with what we call dimensionalized accounting. And it offers us the ability to really kind of simplify the chart of accounts and allow us to tag transactions with these dimensions. And they're instantly available on reports as soon as my transaction is posted. The tags or the dimensions can be available as filters on reports, on dashboards, and it is very, very easy to use. Sage 300 needs some add-ons to do kind of multi-entity management pretty well, and it can do it. If I'm honest, it does it quite well. We have clients with 300 or 400 different companies in Sage 300 passing information back and forth with intercompanies, but we did have to add a lot of kind of third-party add-ons, some Acumen tools to the picture that help, right? That make it a little bit easier to do. Sage Intacct does that really out of the box. You can share chart of accounts, customers, vendors, consolidations and elimination entries are all automatic. Inter-entity transactions and balancing and reconciliation is all part of the core application. And then Sage 300 does lack a bit of ease of use functionality. It's not quite as intuitive as I would say Sage Intacct is. Sage Intacct is it's just more modern. It has more technology under the hood with things like workflow approvals, dashboards. It takes advantage of artificial intelligence to, you could post a journal entry and it might flag it for something you might want to look at because it found it to be out of the ordinary. We call that GL outlier detection. So the newer technology, can help in certain areas, and that's all built into Sage Intacct. Now, I don't want this to be kind of just a one-way discussion, right? We're saying you should switch to Sage Intacct. That's not the purpose of today at all, because there are some holes, right? So Sage Intacct does not have a payroll module yet. So you could end up, if you decided to move to Sage Intacct and had payroll on Sage 300, you could actually keep payroll on Sage 300 and we can just import those transactions over to Sage Intacct. Or some clients are choosing to perhaps move payroll, to an outsourced provider like an ADP, a Paychex, or something like that. But there is no canned Sage Intacct payroll module. That's on the roadmap. They're telling us that's coming, but it is not here today. The GL vendor customer item number change utilities that lots of clients use, not daily, but certainly they're pretty helpful if and when you need to use them. We don't have anything like that yet in Sage Intacct. Sage 300, some people really do like the Excel-based financial reporting tool, right? In Sage Intacct, I think it's a much better, much easier to use reporting tool, but it is not Excel-based. That doesn't mean I can't dump things into Excel, but I do it on the screen first. I can run a report, I can drill into it, I can tweak it, I can change it, and then push it to Excel. I'm not starting with Excel. And then a few other kind of smaller things with commissions. We don't have quite as much flexibility on splitting different reps per order. There's no such thing as kind of a return material authorization in Sage Intacct. And Sage 300 actually has overlays for different languages, Spanish, French, and Chinese, and Sage Intacct is English only. So again, this is, we're happy to work with clients on Sage 300, on Sage Intacct. Sage 300 is not going anywhere. In fact, we're taking a lot of clients Sage 300 systems. They're not ready to necessarily change products. They're quite happy, but they say, I don't want to manage my hardware anymore. So we're moving them into our cloud providers, and offering options to kind of have the best of both worlds. Now, we're going to finish up today and then open up some questions with a very brief demo of Sage Intacct. So I'm going to switch over to that screen and we'll kind of take a tour of Intacct and see what it looks like. So let me show my taskbar here and pull up Intacct. So as I said, this is completely cloud-based, right? So I am using Google Chrome here. I've logged into my Acumen demo company as Nick Nabosny. So these are named users in Intacct, which is a difference between Sage 300, which is concurrent users. And there is absolutely nothing to install on my device. I happen to be using my laptop here because we're following this, as part of this webinar, but I could have easily switched over to my phone and quite literally showed you this exact same dashboard. So any browser, any device with any browser, you can access this same system. Okay. I like to start with my dashboard, and this is just a sample dashboard. I call this my controller dashboard. My user has access to all of the different entities in the system, and I've called them entity 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And because I've logged into what we call the top level, it has natively rolled everything up for me. So it consolidates almost instantly. It is built and made to kind of bring information together. This is a sample dashboard, as I said, where as a controller, I might want to look at things like revenue. I might be looking at net income, and I want to see how that's trending versus a budget, trending versus a period of time. I might be focused on tables, or I might have this metric where revenue by customer, if it's between the $60 and $70 range, that's our magic number. And that means things are healthy. That means I don't have to panic. That means, it's exactly where it should be. So you can quite literally put any piece of information that we have in the system on your dashboard. I can calculate things here. As you saw, revenue per customer. I can look at cash flow. So if a cash flow report by entity is something very important to me, I might include that on my dashboard. I might be focused on payables going out the door. I want to see what the balance is for each of the different vendors, maybe the top 10 vendors that we have open and balances with. Perhaps I want to look at what we call Collaborate, which is a tool in Intacct where we can communicate back and forth with different users. So here's a bill where I was talking with Drew Jackson, who's one of my direct reports, and I can see, I've asked them to pay this, or please let me know when we sold our last display to Lowe's, and we're having a communication going back and forth. It's pretty neat because it gets that whole communication out of Outlook or out of email or out of whiteboards in the office and puts it in the system where it belongs and where it's actually stored, so I can come back and look at it down the road. So, and then lastly, I may want access to my workflow in the system. So there is workflow built into Intacct for approving expense reports, purchasing transactions, payables transactions, and even journal entries if you want. And some people like to have that on their dashboard. So again, just a sample dashboard. And if we looked at another one, where an employee might not have quite as much information. The employee might be looking at Collaborate, might want to see expense reports, might be looking at a calendar here to see, when the next company holiday is, right? You might say a purchasing person maybe really interested in those vendors, right? Here's that list of vendors again. Might want to have access to different portals, that we do business with certain vendors like Viaficient or Cisco and be able to launch their portal. Maybe I'm looking at a vendor exception report or just have access to approving PO transactions in my dashboard. So quite literally, dashboards mean something different to everyone we work with, right? At the very least, we'd put different information on those dashboards. So we can help clients with building those dashboards and getting them into the system. Now, this is all great. I can see this information here, but if I drill into it, I can open it up and see, okay, here's what's gone on with our revenue from last month to this month. And we'll drill into say, okay, what's this look like here? And we'll open up this particular invoice. And I can see in just a couple of clicks that this invoice was for December 4th for customer Marion International. It is actually overdue. It has not been paid. I can see where I've broken down and coded that invoice. And what's neat here is actually I've coded this across 4 different entities. So this could be an AR invoice to a customer where different companies got involved providing different services. It could be the other side, right, where I got an AP bill from a vendor and need to split it across multiple companies. And what the system will do is automatically balance the do froms for me. But I can also have other tags in here. So projects, vendor, related customer, certain employees, divisions, classes. So those dimensions can quite literally be anything that you want them to be, and also be set up so that we can use your terminology. So if certain, a certain insurance company wants to call it line of business instead of class, we can actually go right into the system and rename it. And another company wants to call it department or product line or cost center, we can go in and do that. Okay. Out of the box, the core system comes with all of the relative accounting modules that you might expect, right? General ledger, payables, receivables, sales order entry, cash management, and banking, time and expenses, and purchasing. And then you can go in and add these reporting tools to the system where I can have dashboards that I want to have for different people, different divisions, different users of the system. And also the reporting tool allows me to pull information from all different areas of the system. So let's take a look at the reporting center here. And I can see, okay, this is where I like to come to see all of the different reports in the system. And if I'm looking for something that's in accounts payable, I can filter it. I can look for open vendor analysis or open payables or analysis by vendor, or my customer reports are all here in the report center. Very easy to find, very easy to search for things. If I've happened to schedule any reports to run, on a certain basis, I want open payables to be run every third week. I'd like open receivables to be run every Friday and emailed out to my sales team so they have no excuse on Monday morning when we're having our sales meeting about why their customers haven't paid, right? They've gotten that AR collections report every Friday in their inbox, and I don't have to touch it. The system will just do it automatically. If I've built any custom reports, I can see them here in different areas by module. So very easy to set up, very easy to configure. And what would happen, let's say someone on the call would like to take a look at Sage Intacct or is considering a move to Sage Intacct, what we would do is we would sit down with you and say, okay, let's talk about, your company as if it was a brand new organization, and we know what you have in Sage 300, but let's kind of analyze it together and take a step back and say, what would you like to have now that we have this new technology available, now that we don't have to do things in spreadsheets on a daily basis? Do you have any other systems that you've added to your kind of infrastructure that are not Sage, right? That you may want to connect? Do you have a service ticketing system? Do you have an accounts payable automation system out there? So we'll sit down with you and do a design workshop again, which oftentimes clients love because we're so busy, we don't have time to kind of spend working on the business. We're always working in the business. So it's a great exercise to do in itself. And we're going to come up with a list of requirements, right? So this is what we'd want to have in Intacct. This is where these are any changes we need to make. This is where we need to make some tweaks. And these are some integrations we might want to have. Then we're going to start to configure Sage Intacct and do a data conversion for you. So our team has worked on some tools to pull information from Sage 300 and automatically import it over into Sage Intacct. So you're not going to be starting, without your GL history. You're not going to be, having to key in open payables and worry about those types of things. And then we'll do training, of course, where we'll walk you through, okay, we need to make sure we know how to cut checks and do journal entries, and is the workflow configured correctly, and make sure we get you set and ready to go. Then you'll have some time to practice. You'll be able to test it in a test company. You'll be able to play around with it, post some transactions, write some reports if you want to, make sure you're comfortable. And then really at go live, we're kind of then behind you, just supporting you, making sure that, you remember where things are. You didn't forget where that one report was, and things have gone as smoothly as possible. And, then offer an ongoing support option where we make sure that you're continuously comfortable. You have a new team member and need a little bit of extra training, or you down the road would like to add a contract billing module, or you'd like to add fixed assets or Sage Intacct budgeting and planning to the solution, where we're here to then help you kind of add to the solution down the road. So we would treat it like a project and help you kind of on that journey to the cloud, and taking into account other things you have, as I said, accounts payable workflow, fixed assets, Salesforce, if you're using that and want to connect it, or perhaps ADP and payroll, if that's already outsourced and you want to make sure that's linked up. We'll help you with all of that technology and make sure that it's connected to your Sage system. Okay, so let's kind of stop there with our demo and come back to our slides and open it up a little bit here. So, what should we do next? So we wanted to be able to do a little poll here. And Stephen, hopefully we can get this to work.
Yeah.
We wanted to send out a little poll and say, okay, if you're sitting out there, if you've watched this and, you'd like a little bit more information about Intacct, or, you're just here to learn about the new solutions and wanted to know what the cloud was. You'd like a private demo where we can spend, more than kind of 5 or 6 minutes and set it up with some of your data in it. Please feel free to go ahead and add into the webinar, and then we'll take that data in and make sure, we get answers for everyone that's out there.
I'll give it probably some 10, 15 seconds before we move along.
Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and open it up for some questions then, Stephen, and see if we have any questions for anyone on the line. If there's anything we can answer.
So we did have
Please
a
feel
few.
free.
Yeah, we had a
It
few
is
questions.
just a reminder, it's listen only. And if you need to put some questions in the Q&A or the chat, we're happy to kind of read them out loud and then answer them for you.
Yeah. We did have a few questions that came in already, so we can go ahead and get started. But yeah, if you guys do have any more questions, please type them in. The first one that came in, it says, will Acumen support Sage 300 if we do not move to Sage Intacct?
Answer is absolutely yes. We're happy to support your Sage 300 if you want to stay on premise and keep it on your servers. We're happy to help you do that and make sure it's as safe and usable as possible and efficient as possible. If you'd like to stay on Sage 300 and perhaps want to move that into a private cloud, we can help with that as well. Sage 300 isn't going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. And we're quite happy, as long as you're happy, with Sage 300 to help you stay with Sage 300.
Thanks. We had another one that came in. It says, does Sage Intacct require a lot of training?
So that's a really good question. And I would say no, not nearly as much as some of these older legacy systems like Sage 300 and other systems out there, Sage 100, Sage 500. They it's just more intuitive. We're able to kind of configure it so that it uses your terminology. So if dimensions, you call it a line of business or a cost center, we can actually quite literally change the name of the system, which really helps the users kind of buy in and also understand. It's also not a batch driven system. So when I post something, it's available. I don't have to remember to go over to post it in AP and did I post it in GL or did I forget? Is automatic posting on and off? It's all real time. So we certainly will train you up, but we've seen lots of clients take less and less training and do a lot more in the system on their own. It's people actually really like to use Sage Intacct.
Thanks, Nick. Another question that came in, it says, will payroll module be added on Sage Intacct in the future?
The answer is yes. I don't have a date as to when, but it is absolutely on the Sage Intacct roadmap. And Sage does have, through all the different products that they own, many different payroll modules available. So they're pulling in the good bits of those pieces and building out the Sage Intacct payroll option. So I can't unfortunately say when, but the answer is absolutely yes, that it is on the roadmap for addition to the product, to the core product.
Thank you. Another one is, how many of your clients are content with the out-of-box Intacct solution versus pursuing some customization?
So I'm going to kind of answer that with, we don't do a lot of customization in Intacct. And I'm going to use that term specifically and kind of nitpick on it and say that we do lots of configuration, but in Intacct, what I like is, the clients themselves can go in and do that. We can show you how. So if you wanted to, uh, change the dimensions, you wanted to go in and change how the screen looks or add fields, that's absolutely all something you guys can do as clients and users of the system. We don't have to do that for you. We don't have to take the programming language, add fields to it and upload it in your system to, then have to worry about upgrades and things like that. So I would say, most of them use the system out of the box with some configuration, with some kind of additional reports, dashboards that they've built themselves, those types of things. But there's not really a kind of the same level of customization where we're doing coding and stuff like that, that's available for Intacct. So I'd say most really do use it out of the box with some kind of minor configuration changes.
Thanks, Nick. And we'll take one more question. And the final question is, what should I do if I'm not ready for Sage Intacct?
Sure. And that's, we're here today to just kind of give you information about it, right? About the cloud, about what it is, what's out there, what's the new technology kind of available. Why do I keep hearing about the cloud? If you're not ready for that, that's perfectly fine. As we said, nothing's happening with Sage 300. We're not going to stop serving you on Sage 300, helping you Sage 300. So, keep in the back of your mind, perhaps if you want to move Sage 300 to a private cloud hosting, so it's safer, so you don't have to worry about it. You're not worried about ransomware attacks or viruses or anything like that, or you need better remote access. Talk to your account manager or email us at am@acumenfl.com, and your account manager will reach out to you and help you with that. But certainly it's something to kind of just keep on the radar, and let us know down the road if that need changes or something changes in the business, and that time becomes now to take a look at it again. We're happy to help you do that, and navigate that journey when you're ready to do that.
Perfect. Thanks, Nick. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you all for joining us today. If you do have any additional questions, please email us at am@acumenfl.com or give us a call at 407-965-2411. Also, be sure to check us out on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel for the latest Sage videos and webinars. Thank you all for joining us today. And thank you, Nick, for the great presentation. And we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar Wednesday.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.